All right, welcome everybody to our final presentation of the show. It's hard to say. I'm going to be somewhere between relieved and sad tomorrow that it's over. But I've been a member of EAC since 1980, sporadic attendance at the shows, but John and Mabel Ann were always a fixture there. And Mabel Ann was always sitting at the table. They're from St. Joseph's, Michigan. Do you guys winter somewhere too?
No, St. Joe.
Okay. You winter in St. Joe. It's a good winter there. And John's a legend in EAC, and he has all sorts of accolades. One book that he wrote, the Scent book on middle dates, is very definitive. And my brother contacted John right after he wrote it, and John sent me a copy. It was a present from my brother for Christmas, and John had a signature, had little holly leaves and berries and stuff, like, because it was the season. So anyway, I want to introduce John. He's going to talk about the ultimate large scent date and type set. And without further ado, John Wright.
Thank you. Okay. Glad to see both of you here. Click. This, basically, we got the best large scents that I could either find a picture of or take a picture of. And this is reality. Click, next. This is what I've done to them. So I brightened them up a little, edited out some distracting marks, and so what you're looking at is the best of the best, sometimes better than the best. Forward. Our first federal coinage was by James Jarvis on a Ben Franklin design. It's basically time flies, so keep busy on the front. On the back is a circle of 13 links chain to represent the 13 states at the time. Check. But the first scent was actually struck in Massachusetts. And that was 1787, 1788, 2 years only. Next year. Next. In 1792, they passed the Coinage Act, and part of the Coinage Act said they'd have free coinage of silver and gold. You bring in anything in foreign and silver, and they would mint it in U.S. coins to the same amount for free. So Thomas Jefferson went to the bank, took out 75 of these Spanish mule dollars, Mexican actually, and turned them in. Well, we didn't have a mint yet. This is 1792. However, the government did have a contract, and Thomas Jefferson turned them in, and he says, I want half dimes, 5-cent pieces. So 75 of these, we get next 1,500 of these. Thomas Jefferson took delivery on these in 1792, and he spent every one of them over the next several months, mostly in tips, but he spent every one. The few nice ones that are still around, excuse me, few nice ones that are still around were basically never respent, but every one of them were spent. Next. The first, the man that had the contract also made pattern cents, and this is the first U.S. produced cent. It's called a silver center cent. It had a plug of silver in the center worth 3/4 cents, and the copper around it is worth 1/4 cent, so you had 1 cent worth of metal in it. Next, they also struck a few of them without the silver center. They also struck half dimes and dimes. The silver center cent was called a small cent. It was about U.S. quarter size. The birch cent is called the large cent. They all contain the same inscription around the thing: United States of America on the back, and Liberty, parent of science and industry, around the front. Next, this is the first federal coinage, struck in 1793, March 1st to March 12th, 12 days only. Had the length of 15 length chains around the back because Vermont had joined the Union in 1790 and Kentucky in 1791. So we now have 15 states. Thought that was a good symbol for unity. Public didn't think it was a good symbol for unity. Figured a chain is a good symbol for slavery. So they discontinued the chain cent in this. Okay. They discontinued the chain cent and started making wreath cent. They made the wreath cent for about 6 months, and mintage of 62,000 or something, and they were quite popular. Survival rate of wreath cents is about twice what you'd find of any other large cents, around 5 to 8% instead of 3 to 5%. Next, variation on the wreath cent, back one. The wreath cent had a 3-leaf sprig underneath the head, above the date, now in the next. But one variety has what's called a strawberry leaf. There are 4 examples known of that, so it's quite expensive. Next, this is a French coin, actually a French metal, struck in the Paris Mint, again a Ben Franklin design, and the 2 dates on the reverse have the dates of American victories at Saratoga and Yorktown. That was it. Thank you. My memory's not as good as it used to be. But notice the obverse on this: a head facing left with a liberty cap on a pole on the reverse. Next, half cents followed the exact same design: liberty cap left with a cap behind it. This half cents were struck between the wreath cent and the third type to follow next with the liberty cap. This is the rarest type. This is the rarest large cent date and type set. Not the rarest date, but the rarest date and type. Next, 94, design were exactly the same. 95, the edges on the 94 and the first 95 cents, 100 for $1. But in the mid-95, they reduced the weight by 20%, and they can no longer letter the edge because the coin's too thin to letter the edge. So they're plain edge. Next, a few other interesting 94s. Next, Had a talk earlier today on the starred reverse, another interesting 1794. Next, 95 continued the same type, started off with a lettered edge, reduced the weight by 20%, made plain edge, same size. Next, we had, I believe it was Harper, who had a contract back in 1792. He wanted to continue, and the government was speaking about the cost of the mint. All cost too much. We don't want to do this. He says, "Well, here's a sample of what I can do." It was turned down, not because of the design. Design's pretty close to the U.S. Design of 1793 to 95, but probably thinking of the Jarvis fiasco. Jarvis had been delivered 41.5 tons of copper to strike coins with. He delivered about 4 tons of copper and then skipped to France to avoid his arrest. So they've remembering the Jarvis fiasco, I don't think we want to go contract coinage. The next, 96, we continue the same type, but in mid-year they changed to what I consider one of the more beautiful types. Next. This wreath type went from 1796 to 1807. 97, the same type. 98, same type. Interesting, 98 delivered our first overdate. Next. 98 over 7. Next. 99 is the key year for a large cent series. Most of them don't look like this. Next. 1800 is there 1800 there are several varieties and they're mostly rather difficult to tell apart, but few of the overdates, there's several overdates of 1800. Next, this is one of the more obvious ones. Next, 1801, this one is the interesting 3-error variety. It has a 1/000. U is struck first upside down, so it looks like a Roman numeral 2, and only one stem to the wreath. Notice the clash mark on the bottom of the head, the bottom of the coin, bottom of the reverse. Clash happens when the two dies slam together without a blank in between. And dies are steel, but one of them has got to be softer than the other or not as hard as the other. Next. So this is what a clash mark looks. Notice the clash on the obverse. Next. 1801 produced 5 errors, well actually 5 dies with the 1/000 instead of 100. And on 2 of these, they were corrected. 2 of them were used further into 1802 and 1803, but there were only 5 dies made with the 1/000, and they were all made at the same time in 1801. Next, 1802, same design. 1803, same design. 1803, one die has letter punches from $50 instead of a large cent. So the large date 1803 is quite scarce. It comes with either large letter reverse or small letter reverse. Small letter reverse is quite expensive. Take a look at between this and next. There you go. This is a normal small date. They say the biggest difference is that the one is either blunt or pointed, go back one. But I find it easier to recognize the shape of the three. Notice the serif goes both up and down, whereas next, on a normal 18.3, it goes down only. Only one die is a large date. Next, 18.4, second key date. 8 key dates are 18.4, 1799, and 1893. 18.4, one interesting thing on 18.4 is there was a restrike made in the around 1870, 1868 to 72, and men sold a, yeah, go next. Blow it up bigger. There you go. Men sold a scrap of scrap steel, and among that scrap steel was several coinage dies. So a couple of coin dealers got a hold of it, Mickley and Cogan, and decided we can make money on this. We can make a rare coin. Here, look for an 18.4 die because that's a good date. Nope, but they got an 18.3 die, so we'll use an 18.3 obverse, an 18.13 reverse. Next, but the 18.4 restrike is actually an overdate as well. You notice the 4/3. Next, this is the 18.3 it was made from. You notice the same crack. Next, there's the whole coin. Next, 18.5, we continue the same design. Next, 18.6, same. Next, 18.7, same. Next, 18.7 has two overdates. One is called a small overdate. They say the quickest way to tell the small overdate from the large overdate is the small overdate has a blunt one, the large overdate has a pointed one. But I find an easier way, look at the 7/6. The broad 6 left in the inside, the left side of the 7, and the 7 does not extend below the 6. Next, here's a large 7. Notice the pointed one, 7 goes below the 6, and it's only thin left of the 6. Next, 18.8, we have a new design, new type, same. 18.9, same. 18.10, same. 18.10 is another overdate, 10/9. Next, 18.11, same. 11 overdate. Next, 18.12, 18.13, 18.14. There are no cents struck in 18.15. Correction, there were cents struck the first delivery of copper planchets from Britain. We were sole sourcing our copper planks from Britain at this time, and with the War of 1812, we couldn't bring in anything from Britain. By 1814, we had run out of copper. So no copper struck in 1815. Next, any 1815 cents you see are made from other things. This one came from an 1813. Check the 5 of the date. Next, there's the 13 it was made from. Next, 1816, we come out with a new head. Next, 1817, another interesting, one variety of 1817, and it's quite common. It costs more, but it's still quite common. Had 15 stars instead of 13 stars. Why 15? I don't know, because there were 21 states at the time. But my favorite, 1817, next, is my 30-star variety. 15 stars on the front and 15 NQ stars on the back. And I know of 7 examples of that. Next, not all 1817s are just a brockage. Next, 1818. There are 10 varieties of 1818. A couple of them are a little scarce, but not rare. N4 is the scarcest. Took me 10 years to find one. But the rarest 1818, next, is this. The so-called continuous wreath or 14-star variety. That's a contemporary counterfeit. There are 5 examples known. This is the best of the 5, and it sold at auction recently at over $10,000. Next, 1819. 19 comes with a large date and a small date. Stars close to the date or far from the date. Next, it also comes with an overdate. 1819 over 18. Next, 1820, nothing unusual. Comes with a large and small date, but it also comes with an overdate, 20 over 19. Next, 21. 21 draws a price higher than its scarcity suggests, because it's really a common coin. A little more common, a little less common than the 20s and the 19s and the 22s, but still common. Next, 22, common date. Next, 23. There are no copper struck in 1823. Met records are clear on that, says there was no copper struck during the year, and yet there are several thousand 1823 cents around today. Best guess, they were probably struck in 1824. Some dies dated 1823. Next, we also get an overdate, 23 over 2, or my favorite coin, next, 1823 over 2 over 23 over 2. I lusted after that coin, never owned it. It was offered to me and I couldn't afford the price. Next. On that scrap steel thing, there was an 1823 obverse, 1823 obverse, 1813 reverse, and most of them don't look like this. They look next like this. Notice a bisecting crack on the obverse, quadrisecting down from the chin. That's because that die is still around. Mint bought back, or I should say the federal government bought back at auction all of the scrap dies that were in that thing, except the 23 restrike. 23 restrikes are probably more common than the others because they were struck for a longer period, probably into the 20th century. Next, there are the actual dies for making a 23 restrike. They're now in Colorado Springs at the ALA Museum. Next, 1824, another interesting, also comes next with an overdate, 24 over 2. Next, 25. One variety of 25 is quite rare and is extremely similar to, Well, it has the obverse of N4, reverse of N10. And it is very similar to both N4 and N10 and N6. So as soon as this was announced, this is not the N5. That's just a 25. But one interesting thing happened in 25. Lafayette had a tour of the United States. Very professional tour, very well-known, very well-received tour. An outside company decided we can make money on making a die to have a head of Lafayette and a die to have a head of Washington next, and we'll overstrike large cents and half dollars, and we'll sell them at a premium. These are a quite expensive collector item today. The overstrike was not done by the U.S. Mint. Next, 1826. 26 is a common date. Next. But it also has an overdate. Easiest way to recognize the 26 over 5, you can see a little bit of the 5 inside the top loop of the 6, but the easiest way is notice the spacing of the date. 1 space, 8 space, 26 close. And that's the Newcomb 8, the overdate. Next, my favorite 26, that's a brockage, off-center brockage overstruck normally. Next, 27, common date, has two scarce varieties, 10 and 12. 12 is close to rare. Next, 28, common date. Next, 29, common date. Next, 1830, common date. Rarest 1830 is the rarest mid-date large cent that I don't keep an exact count on numbers. It's probably a low R5. Probably a mid to high R5, but rarity 5, not 6. Next, 31, common date. Interesting 31, a bit scarce, but not rare. Next is a harpooned whale, so named for the cut break on the obverse. Next, 32, common date. Next, 33. An interesting thing happened in 33. Great Britain abolished slavery in all Commonwealth nations in 1833. Had we lost the Revolutionary War, there would have been no Civil War in 1861, because in 1833, they'd have lost their slaves. Next, this is by the American Colonization Society. Colonization Society was founded in 1816 to repatriate freed slaves back to Africa. Colonization Society provided money to buy land in Africa to repatriate these slaves too. And they kept adding to this land and adding to this land. This land is now known as Liberia in Africa, originally founded by American Colonization Society. These coins were struck in 1830, These tokens were struck in 1833. They circulated freely as large cents, and I found it quite interesting. Next, 1834. Interesting thing happened in 1834. President says, U.S. Mint, I want you to strike a specimen strike of every denomination and a presentation set, and I want to present them as to the Imam of Muscat and the King of Siam. Next, this is the King of Siam set, 1833. Interesting thing, Mint director says, okay, we make everything except not the dollar and not the eagle. So we check when was the records of the last eagle made and the last dollar made. That was 1804. Okay, make up the dies and fill those in. That was the origin of the 1804 dollar. Next, 1835. Interesting thing happened in 1835. This is the old type, made for most of the year, changed in mid-year. Next, to the new slim bust, went Liberty on a diet. Notice the bust, back one. That's the old type. Forward one, new type. 36 was same type. Oh, that's my favorite 35. My favorite coin of this 1835 set. Next, 1836 was the same type as a new hit of 35. 37, also in 36. U.S. Mint, for the first time, had a steam coinage press. Now, they'd had steam before. They'd had, since 1816, they'd had steam for the rolling mills, for rolling the planchets out to thin plates. But the coining press were still manually processed. 36, they started to seam. This is the original. These were struck at the mint and were passed out. I don't know if at a cost or if for free, but they were struck at the mint and they're a collectible item today. Notice the date, February 22. Next. This is a restrike. Note this, it looks the same except it says March 23. So you'll know right off whether you got a real one or not. Next. 37, same, continued, but the hair cord, binding a hair, had been plain bands ever since. Notice they're not stuck very deep at the end of the coin. You get coin worn down to below a fine, and the bands are gone. Next, mid-37, they changed the design. They changed plain hair cord to a beaded cord, and they cut it deeper into. You can get a very good, and it still shows a real plain beaded cord. Next, my interesting 37. This is called a lamination, where the cent blank was laminated and part of it peeled off after striking. Next, also in 37, Feuchtwanger made a proposal, struck several examples, tried to get Congress to approve his new design for a cent and a new composition for a cent, 12% nickel, a white cent. Congress rejected it. They'll later change their mind, but for 1837, they rejected it. Feuchtwanger cents were about dime size. Next, up Okay. Also in 37, started the hard times tokens, and they made from 37 through 41. They were of either political or merchants type. The political tokens, this is one of them. There are many different designs. This one is railing about President's war on the Bank of the United States. Next, 1838, common date, very hard to tell apart. There are a few rarities in 38, but they're all very difficult to tell apart. Next, 1839. 39 has 5 different heads. The only year to have 5 different heads. 2 heads are 37, 35, but not 5. This one is called the 39/6. Notice the plain hair cords. We had beaded hair cords starting in 37, and yet here's the 39, it's got plain hair cords. Notice next, here's the actual date. It's called 39/6. I'm not sure that's the 6 over there. It looks like it's intentional, but I don't think it's a 6. Maybe they tried to make it an 8. But this is what the 39/6 looks like. Next, this is the 39 ahead of 38. It looks just like the others. No brow lock, and the head is normally rounded. Next, this is called the silly head. It basically is very similar to the head of 38, except it has a brow lock sticking out from the brow, and the head's a bit taller. That didn't go over well. Next was the booby head. The silly head and the booby head have been named since the 1860s, and name is stuck. Not that it's any sillier than the others, but the booby head is obvious to pick out the truncation of the bust. The hair curls under the bust, but the corner of the bust sticks out. Notice previous, the curl goes around the bust on everything else. Okay, next. This is the booby head. It's a type of 1840, got several names. It's called the petite head, the small head, the head of 40, the tipped head. But it's one design, one variety. Next, 1840, same design. One interesting 1840, not all that rare, but interesting. Next, it's called the 1840 small date over the large 1/8. Next, 1841 is the same. Next, 42. Next, 43. 43 that had the last change of the season. We started off with what's called the tipped head or the small head and the small letters on the reverse. Next, notice the same year, the head is now larger and the letters are larger. Notice the quick way to tell a large head from the small head. Notice the large head is the coronet points midway between the 2 stars. Back up one. On the small head, it points at the 6th star, 5. And the bust points down over the 8 as opposed to next, overshooting the 1. Next, 44, common year. Next, interesting 44, date was punched in Oops, upside down. 1/8, called the 44 of 81. Next, 45. Next, 46. Next, interesting 46, rather common variety, but an interesting double date. In the 1840s to the early 1850s, double date digits are fairly common. This is about the most obvious of the group. Next, 47. Next, interesting 47. This is called a cap strike. That's where the struck coin actually adheres to the die. As the die comes up, it's stuck to it. A new blank is fed in, and it's now stamped. And the coin that is stuck to the head of the die is stamped several times. So you got a blown out reverse, and you got a normal incuse almost obverse. Next, in 1847, a New York firm made the 1 Canada for Hawaii. Hawaii was still a kingdom at the time, and they contracted to have these made. 1,000 of them were made. Most were destroyed. They're quite popular collector's item now. This is still a large cent size. Next, interesting 47. In 1847, the American Colonization Society decided we're no longer subsidizing the country of Liberia. No longer subsidizing means we're not sending annual money to buy land anymore. You're on your own. This was struck in Britain. This is a Liberian piece, 1847. It's a large cent size, and it's a beautiful coin. Next, 1848. Next, 49. Yeah, it's 49. Next, 1850. By 1850, it's costing over a cent a piece to make sense. So they start, we're going to try some experiments to see if we can make some different design, make our cent smaller, make it some way to make it cheaper so it's not costing us over a penny a piece to make them. Next, this is one try, 1850 pattern cent. Next, another try. Next, 1851. 1851 is interesting. Up next, 51 over 81. It's actually a 51 over an inverted date, inverted 1/8. The one thing that'll always show, this spike here, always shows. Later strikes, the remnants of the 1 at the top, the remnants of the 8 under the 5 are gone, but that spike always shows. Next, 1852. Next, 1853. We try another experiment. Next, 1853. Two varieties of 1853 are commonly known with a misaligned die. That means normally centered reverse, off-center obverse, off-center shifted left. Next, this is the pattern 1853. Again, nothing goes from it. Next, 1854. we're getting desperate because it's still costing even more to make cents, and you're still getting only a penny apiece for them. Next. So we try a slightly smaller cent, leave the stars off, make it look a little different. That's one possibility. Next. Another possibility, we'll take a quarter design, try that. Next. Third try, we'll maybe make a flying eagle type. Next. 1855. Next. One 1855 interesting is called the knob on ear. A chunk falls out of the die progressively. Actually, I've seen 8 or 9 stages of this chunk, but the knob on ear is pretty easy to pick out. Next. Pattern 1855 cent. By now we've only got one type, so evidently they've decided on a particular type if we're going to do anything. Next, 1856, we're getting toward the end of the large cents. Next, we'll try patterns. This is one of the patterns. What's different about this? Look at the reverse.
Shield.
Next. This is the type that was actually designed. There's probably around 2,500 of these struck. They were passed out to every senator, every congressman, every lobbyist, anybody that they can. Here, take this. This is a sample of what your new cents are going to look like if you pass Bill so-and-so. The bill passed. Next, 1857, the end of the series. Next, and the 1857 small cent for circulation. They were extremely popular. They're struck in nickel, white nickel, well, copper nickel, white coins. In 1857 was the year the U.S. Mint got out of copper completely. Nothing is struck in copper from 1857 up till 1864. Nothing struck in copper. Discontinued the half cents, discontinued the large cents for the small cent. Don't know why people didn't complain, but it was extremely popular. It almost looks like a dime. It's about dime size, and it's white metal. Nobody complained. Next, this is where the design comes from. $1836, 1854 gold dollar. Back one. Forward. Big. Yeah, thank you. Okay, next. So here is the final large cent. Really? Let's see. Next. 1864, we start making cents in copper again. Next. And we'll make a 2-cent piece of just about the same size as the half cent we recently discontinued. Next, 1865, the next year, we come out with a 3-cent piece. Why 3 cents? Well, it seems that we had the 3-cent piece struck in 1861, and they're still striking them in silver. We come out with a nickel 3-cent piece. Next, 1866, we got a nickel 5-cent piece. We got a nickel cent, a nickel 3 cent, a nickel 5 cent. Next. And we try a nickel 10 cent, but they never struck that for circulation. However, when they make the pattern 10 cent, they say, you know, I think we could maybe make a little money on the sly on this. Next. Use the same obverse die and grab an old reverse die, and we strike it in copper and sell it to collectors. And that's where the 1868 large cent comes from. They were struck at the mint. They were privately struck and clandestinely distributed for money. Next. So we now have nickel 1 cent. Next. 3 cent. Next. 5 cent. Every one of these was called a nickel when it was created. It really gets confusing when you got a nickel 1 cent, nickel 3 cent, nickel 5 cent, and they say it's a nickel. Here's a nickel 5 cent. Next. Next. Nickel 5 cents, the only nickel that still remains. And that's why it's called a nickel today. Next. 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 And next. We have questions.
I'm just curious, for the 1821, the rationale for why it brings a premium even though it's not scarce.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just, do you know why? You know, means that.
The 1812,
I don't know why. I don't know why. It's just overpriced. Yes.
In 1846, you showed with a nice double bait. I know there's one like that in 1847 also.
Mm-hmm.
You attribute that to the early playing around with that logo type for the gang lights that they were using.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've got a whole series of double punches of the one, the last digit, whatever. And every one of those are from the whole logotype, just a little deeper one end than the other. Yes.
The copper blankets that were shipped from Britain, I know a lot of those, or most of those, or all of those came from Bolton and the Soho Mint at that
Yes.
between about 1797 and shortly after the War of 1812.
97, we got the first Bolton planchets. Notice the 96s are, how can I say, most 96s are kind of rough. And in 97, we had the first shipment of Bolton planchets, and they were extremely well made. That started replacing what we were producing here, and till eventually by 1812 to 14, we were sole sourcing from Britain, which is why we ran out in 1814.
But then resumed after the war, right?
After the war, the first British shipment of copper arrived in December of 1815 and was struck into coins in 1815 and distributed to the mints, or to the banks, in December 1815. Whether they were the old 1814 dies or the new 1816 dies, can't think of his name. I'm getting better and better at losing names. But
they all came from Bolton,
yeah,
the British one.
they came from Bolton, and though they were delivered and distributed in 1815, There's nothing dated 1815, period, other than what's been altered from other dates. Most commonly from 1813 or 1845. 1845 is going to be the wrong head. Question any more? Yes.
John, you made a comment about the Drake bust lot sets as being among the most attractive in the series, which I happen to agree with completely. Yet it was only used for about 12 years. Why was the design as lovely as that discontinued at some 1807? It's the last year.
No idea why, but actually the turbine head is another beautiful, beautiful design. It's just most of the coins you see are well worn and dark and ugly. Next.
What's your favorite coin of the large sets?
Ooh, that.
Ooh. Ooh. There's so many. And my favorite coin probably wouldn't be a middle age. Next. If no other questions, I guess we're done.